It's a privilege to be here. Look, I'm going to be talking about some things you probably never heard before. Hopefully you're going to find them interesting, because I'm going to be talking about how to reverse diseases right the way throughout the next few days. Reverse diseases, that's what I really specialize in. Before I do that though, because we're talking about health, I would like us to do something together. I just want us to stand together, get you to do a little bit of exercise. There you go. Okay, yes, stand together, wonderful. Now I'm just going to ask you a few questions, if I may. If you can say yes to these questions, stay standing. If no, sit down. It sounds simple. I know some of you may find it complicated. All right. Now, if you've been able to eat between 5 and 10 portions of fruit and vegetables each day, stay standing. If not, sit down. Right. Okay, wow, Alberta. Interesting. We need some help, don't we? Right, for those still standing, if you've been able to drink at least a liter of water each day of this week, stay standing. If not, sit down. Very good. For those still standing, if you've been able to sleep between 6 and 8 hours each night this week, stay standing. If not, sit down. Right, okay. If you're still standing, if you've been able to exercise at least 5 times this week for half an hour, stay standing. If not, sit down. Right, okay. So last question, for those still standing, how long have you had a problem telling the truth? Tell me. Now let's give them a round of applause. Give them a round of applause. Well done. You can sit down. You can sit down. Fantastic. That's very good to see. These are some of the principles, obviously, of having a healthy lifestyle. So this is me, Dr. Chitty. I do this program called Life Colors. Life Colors, really, each color represents a different disease, and it represents a pathway to prevent or reverse the disease. That's what we do, Life Colors, and I'll talk to you a bit about that later. But tonight we're talking about how to beat disease. Now, I would love to tell you everything. I would love to, but we'll be here a long time, so I know you have homes to get back to. So what I thought I would do is tell you at least one thing for each disease on how to reverse it. Is that okay? One thing for each of the 9. So before I start though, just want to check, is there anybody here who's not heard about COVID-19? I just want to make sure we're all from planet Earth, right? Everybody's heard of COVID-19. Well, I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, some information came to us from Italy, and it said that over 99%, in fact it was 99.2% of the people who died from COVID had at least one underlying disease. In other words, if you didn't have an underlying disease, you were not likely to die from COVID, right? What were those diseases? The ones that we were all talking about: blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, all the rest. Now, what I never heard was, okay, if people have these diseases and it's causing them to die, why don't we do something about it? I think about chronic disease like a bear stalking us in the distance. Well, we're in Canada. Anybody ever been stalked by a bear? No one's ever said yes. I thought I might get a yes here. But if it's in the distance, it's not so bad, right? It's far away. You don't want it there, but it's far away. It's not actually going to kill you. It's a bit like having a chronic disease. It's not going to kill you today. You can go to your hospital appointments, have your medication, you'll be okay. You don't want it, but it's there. But what happened with COVID-19 is that bear really came up on your shoulder. That diabetes that you were living with was now going to kill you. So was the blood pressure, the asthma. Anytime the body gets an insult like that, that disease has weakened your system so that now that bear is right up on your shoulder. So that's why my job of helping to reverse diseases is always relevant. Always relevant, because there will be more pandemics, there will be more insults to the body, and we need to learn how to reverse them. So, just before I move on from the pandemic, just so that you know, every single pandemic has its origin in animals and meat. How we farm them, how we eat them. We never get pandemics from dandelions and roses. They all come from animals and meat. Now even COVID, even though we know it was kind of genetically engineered, however, the origin came from an animal. So there we go. I'm going to come back to vitamin D a bit later. So let's go on. One tip for each disease. Let us start with the heart. Heart disease is still the biggest killer in the Western world, certainly in Canada. Over half of the people who die early die from heart disease. So what one tip would I give you to help you reverse heart disease? By the way, this was the first chronic disease that we learned that you could actually reverse. You know, when I was training, I trained up in Cambridge in surgery, and you had to do different types of surgery. I did cardiothoracic surgery, where people's arteries have clogged up, and we had to do those bypasses, right? Well, we realized a long time ago that by changing your diet to a healthy plant-based diet, I'll say that again, healthy plant-based diet, because they're not all healthy. In this study, it showed that you can reverse it up to 40%. We now know that you can do it up to 90% of the people can be reversed. Okay, so just by having a healthy plant-based diet. I don't know if you realize what that means. That means instead of having a surgeon like me opening you up, you just change your diet and the arteries open up on their own. Yeah? I mean, wouldn't you prefer that? I certainly would, because sometimes the surgeon's hand slips and you never know. Right, next. Next one. Do you know anybody with high blood pressure? I think everybody knows somebody with high blood pressure. It's one of the most common drugs that we get on. What on earth can we do, one thing, what tip can I give you to reverse hypertension, high blood pressure? You know, and by the way, people like to say, oh, is it in the genes? Doctors will tell you, oh, it runs in the family, it must be genetic. You ask the doctor, where is the gene for high blood pressure? It doesn't exist. What runs in the family is our lifestyle. What runs in the family is the way we deal with stress, what we eat, all of those things. What one tip can I give you? Eat more greens. You know, when we digest greens, when we digest that chlorophyll, and it goes into our system, it goes into our bloodstream, it stimulates our own arteries to release a chemical. And that chemical opens up the arteries, therefore lowers your blood pressure. What is that chemical? It's called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide. By the way, nitric oxide is the active ingredient of Viagra. I think you call it Cialis over here. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Only the women know what I'm talking about. The men are all looking at me as if, well, I have no idea, I've never had any use for this. No, the active ingredient, that drug for erectile dysfunction, the same active ingredient for that you find in greens. Now everybody's making notes, I see. Very good, very good. Right, now you see, gentlemen, by the way, let me tell you this. Erectile dysfunction, first of all, I'll tell you, is reversible. But when people come to me, when men come to me, I always tell them the bad news first. The bad news is that it's much worse than you think. You see, when you get one episode of erectile dysfunction, that is where the arteries are closing down, right? But it's closing down all over the body. So you're at now a massive risk of a stroke and a heart attack and whatever. But the good news is that it is totally reversible. And gentlemen come to me and they say, well, Dr. Chitty, I want to reverse it, but don't tell me about rabbit food. And I say to them, the one thing we know about rabbits is that they don't need Viagra. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, let's move on. Number 3, the answer to cancer. When I was a medical student, cancer used to be the most feared disease. It's been overtaken now by a later one. But we didn't even used to call it cancer, we used to call it the big C. You know, we didn't like to use the name. So what one tip can I give you about how to prevent or reverse cancer? And really it is spice up your life. You remember the Spice Girls? I'm not talking about the Spice Girls. I'm talking about these spices. In fact, any spices. They are potent, powerful anti-cancer drugs. Things like turmeric, you know, everybody knows turmeric these days, flavor of the month. Turmeric is one of the most powerful antioxidants. What does that mean? We hear it all the time, antioxidant. Well, I like to think of oxidants as rusting in the body. Oxidation of metal, oxidation in the body. If you have oxidation of your DNA, that can cause denaturing of the DNA, causing the cells to continue to multiply, and that means it's a cancer. Anti-inflammatory, ginger, fantastic. Cinnamon. Now, people like to put cinnamon in some of their herbal teas and stuff, right? Or cinnamon tea, because it has a sweet flavor. It actually lowers the blood sugar. And because it lowers blood sugar, cancer loves sugar, so it reduces your risk of cancer. In fact, they found out maybe 5-10 years ago that a certain drug for diabetes, metformin, lowers your risk of cancer because it lowers your blood sugar. So they're now trying to use it as an anti-cancer drug, rather than tell people, have less sugar in your diet, have something like cinnamon. But people don't get rich by promoting cinnamon. They do get rich by promoting medication. Cardamom is a wonderful spice that boosts these white cells called the natural killer cells. They have a vicious name, but they do a very good job. And that job is to seek out and destroy cancer. I don't know if you realize this, all of us have cancer today. We all have cancerous cells in our body. It is only the beauty of our immune system that prevents it from becoming a disease. So spice up your life, absolutely. Number 4, I probably spend most of my time helping people to reverse diabetes. What one tip would I give you? That is, after every single meal, take a walk. After every single meal, take a walk. Why should you do that? Well, diabetes is a disease whereby our cells do not respond to insulin, and insulin is the drug that tells the cells to accept glucose. So if it doesn't respond to insulin, glucose doesn't go in. Now, for most cells that's true, but not the muscles. The muscles do not need insulin. So when you go for a walk after a meal, even if it's a healthy meal, your muscles will absorb all the extra glucose, your blood sugar comes down, you don't need as much insulin, your cells can then become insulin sensitive again. I'll tell you this, I've never come across anybody who has type 2 diabetes who needs to live with type 2 diabetes. There's not one person. I've dealt with people from the ages of, in their teenage years to their 90s, they can all be reversed. Okay, they can all be reversed. So go for a walk. That is the best thing to do after a meal. Friendly fire. There's a lot of war going on in the world, isn't there? And it's a tragedy when people get killed. It's even more of a tragedy when they get killed by people on their own team. An accident, friendly fire. Usually the Americans bombing the Europeans by mistake. That's usually how it happens, right? No? Okay. So I like to think of the autoimmune disease like that, when we, instead of defeating bacteria and viruses and invaders, we start to kill our cells. The antibodies start to attack our own tissues. Wherever you have tissue in the body, you will have antibodies that seek to destroy that tissue in an autoimmune disease. When I was at medical school, these were just the weird and wonderful diseases that nobody could cure. You give people lots of steroids, but that was it. We couldn't cure them. So what can we do? Well, I'll tell you this, by the way. Where does autoimmunity start? It starts in the gut. Your gut leaks big proteins into the bloodstream. Your immune system identifies these proteins. Your immune system then starts to attack anything that looks like the protein they've destroyed, wherever it is. Okay. I want to show you this, actually. because we talked about type 2 diabetes, but type 1 diabetes, type 1 diabetes there, type 1 diabetes, this is from a journal, from the New England Journal of Medicine, and it tells us that over 98.5% of the children with type 1 diabetes had raised antibodies to bovine protein. You know what I mean when I say bovine? From the cow. So that means milk protein, right? So milk protein given to children, cow's milk protein given to children, stimulates their immune system to start attacking the pancreas and cause type 1 diabetes, which is also reversible, by the way. Okay, so what we need to do is do what Bart Simpson used to tell us: don't have a cow man, stay away from milk. Some of you may be dairy farmers, don't shoot the messenger. But it's the most powerful thing to do. Cow's milk wasn't designed for humans. Cow's milk was designed for little calves to become big cows. Most of us don't have the enzyme to break down cow's milk anymore. Whether you're white, whether you're Caucasian or Afro-Caribbean, it's still the same thing. So don't have a cow man. That's one thing I would say if you want to give up, and if you want to avoid any autoimmune disease. How do we beat the battle of the bulge? Now I can hear some of you saying, well, I don't need to listen to this, I'm slim. I'll just go to sleep for a bit until he goes on to something else. Well, don't do that, because all of us are battling with fat. Not all of us have this subcutaneous fat. Many of us who are slim have lots of visceral fat. Visceral fat is the fat that surrounds the lungs, the kidneys, the arteries. It's actually the more toxic fat. We call those people toffees, thin outside, fat inside. So we all need to know about this. How do we reduce the amount of fat in our system? And those people with the visceral fat, you can tell who they are, right? They're the slim people who eat loads of junk food and don't seem to put on weight, you know? You know those difficult individuals? No. All right. So, what do we do? What's one tip I can give you? Yes, get rid of the white stuff. This is not a racist statement. This is not a racist statement. I'm talking about that lovely thing called sugar that we're all addicted to. Now, it's fine for me to tell you, give up sugar. It's a problem, though, isn't it? It's not easy. You know, you've got Tim Hortons and all that all over the place. How do you even walk down the street without... And I must say to you, and you probably know this already, I have my own problems with sugar. I have to avoid sugar most of the time. And in fact, I had an episode when a family member came home and they bought this huge cake. And I said, well, what'd you bring a big cake for me for? You know my problem. He said, yeah, well, you know, every now and again you need to have a... I said, look, put that cake away so that I can't see it. So they put it in the fridge, and all day I'm thinking about the cake. I go to bed thinking about the cake. I now can't sleep. Eyes wide open, thinking about the cake. How am I going to go to sleep? Maybe if I go down and look at the cake, just to look at the cake. You can't put any calories on looking at the cake. I went down, looked at the cake. Maybe if I have a wafer-thin slice of that cake, just to taste it. By the end of the night, I finished the cake, obviously. And I blame them, obviously. So I know it's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy. In fact, the pathways for addiction in the brain for sugar is exactly the same as that for heroin. It's difficult. And by the way, heroin you don't pass everywhere. At least I don't think so. I don't know what it's like here, but we don't see heroin all over the place. You go into the local supermarket, there's sugar everywhere. So let me give you some help in how to avoid sugar. So when you, I don't know what happened there. When you see that donut and it's calling your name out, rather than say, I don't know, it's gone. Do you want to bring it back? Rather than say, I must not eat the donut, you say, I will eat the donut, but I'll eat it in half an hour. Even I can wait half an hour. So, you say, give me half an hour, and at the same time you eat an apple. When you eat that apple, you start to digest that apple slowly. It releases sugar slowly into your system. After half an hour, you now have enough sugar in your system to overcome the desire for the donut. Some of you are thinking, well, after half an hour, I still want the donut. I didn't come for an apple, I came for a donut. What are you talking about? Well, if you still feel that way, you can do the whole thing again. You can have another apple. At the end of the day, you can have 5 apples. That's 5 of your 5 a day, which is great. But look, realistically, even if you do eat the donut every now and again, you will eat it far fewer times than if you didn't do this method. It is called, by the way, the Dr. Chidi method. I named it after some guy. And it's called the Dr. Chidi method because it stands for don't resist it. I don't know if I have it here. Don't resist it. No, I don't. Don't resist it. Choose to have it, but delay it. Dr. Chidi. Don't resist. Choose to have, but delay it. Dr. Chidi method. Always works. It works for different spheres of life as well. You go past that shop, you see that pair of shoes. Don't resist it, choose to have it, but delay it. Your bank account may increase, you never know. All right, we must not forget dementia. This is now the most feared of the lifestyle diseases. Losing your memory, losing your personality, losing your family member, it's the most difficult one to deal with. Again, the good news is that it is not a random disease. It is a lifestyle disease. Now, in my life colors, dementia comes up as brown, meaning that it's a mixture of everything. And that's what we've always known. If you have high blood pressure, if you're overweight, if you're diabetic, you have an increased risk of dementia. The biggest increased risk, though, comes from if you have a prolonged time of stress. And I don't really mean stress, I mean you have a poor response to stress for a very long time. You can't avoid stress, but you can do something about your response to stress. And if your response is poor for a very long time, you have an increased risk of dementia. Again, many scientists are trying to tell us that it's genetic, but many of the people who have the genes do not have dementia, and those who don't have the genes do have dementia. There is so much you can do with your lifestyle to prevent. Even if you have dementia, now this is the thing, you need to listen to this. Even if you get a diagnosis of dementia, we now know that if you change your lifestyle, you can reverse up to 90% of the symptoms. 90% of the symptoms. Oh, can this man really be talking the truth? Absolutely true. There's lots of research that's been done on it. And yes, for a very good memory, the more berries. I was listening to, what is the name of that berry? What's it called? Right, so I'm going to taste and see these berries because they're supposed to be even more potent than the blueberry or the blackberry, so that's fantastic. These things are actual ways that you can, we talk about antioxidant, powerful antioxidants that can reverse this decline. Okay, stress and depression. In fact, we're going to be talking more about that tomorrow. What can we do about it? Well, some of the things you can do about that are, because they can be triggered by certain things, debt, divorce, disease, and death, you can head them off at the pass by speaking to somebody about it, getting some help very quickly. But the only way we can really heal, and we'll be talking more about this on the Sabbath, is to learn to forgive. I think that forgiveness is at the heart of most, if not all, of the lifestyle diseases. Yes, we can tell you what to eat, exercise, how to think, all of that. But unless you learn to forgive, you are always going to be a well of stress in your life, right from the inside of your body, causing so much havoc. And really, at the heart of all of these diseases, you have to learn how to get rid of this bitterness, how to let it go. We're going to be dealing with that along the way as we are here, because disease is simply dis-ease. Okay, I'm going to pause there because now it's up to you to ask any questions you want. Okay, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you have none, then we have a very quick night. Yes, we have a hand up there.
I have a number of relatives who have embraced the keto or the carnivore diet.
Yes.
And they give me a long list of health benefits from the keto diet. Mm-hmm. What would you say to them after they read you their list of health benefits from the carnivore diet?
So this is a great question to kick off because it's a bit controversial, isn't it? I mean, people telling us the keto diet, and the keto diet is predominantly, well, and there are many doctors who prescribe to this, predominantly a lot of meat, right? A lot of meat, a lot of fat, a lot of animal products. And there you are, Dr. Chitty, you're saying plant-based, plant-based, plant-based. How can they both be right? Yes and no. Let me tell you this quite honestly. I was 2 years ago, we did a debate in London, about 400 doctors from the UK who all are the proponents of the keto diet. And they invited one doctor, me, to debate them. It was a big hall, and they invited me into the lion's den. Now, this is what I said. There is no doubt that if you transform your diet from the usual standard North American diet, which is full of processed food, and you go to whole food, which includes whole meat, whole dairy, and whatever, that's an improve in your health you're going to see. No question about it. The problem is, and this is what I propose, if you want to promote health, it must be promoting health holistically, everywhere. If you're treating somebody for diabetes, their blood pressure should come down, your blood pulse and everything should come down. With the keto diet, it can help you lose weight, it can help you reverse type 2 diabetes, but it provides many other problems down the line, which they don't tell you about. It will kill your kidneys, kill your liver, do all sorts of things, make your blood more viscous and thick, so heart disease comes down the line. So yes, it can help in the short term. I mean, you have a very famous proponent of that diet here. You have Jordan Peterson, right? Jordan Peterson, he cured one of his illnesses, and his daughter cured one of her illnesses by going on this diet. But have you heard about what's happened to him now? Incredibly sick. So it helps you in one area, but down the line, you pay a huge price. The only type of diet that can hit all of the buttons is the healthy plant-based diet as given to us in the Garden of Eden. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. But thank you, that was a good question. Next question, please. No more questions. Okay, fine. Oh, okay. Oh no, we've got a professor coming. I better brace myself. Oh, you heard that? Okay. Yes, that's right. So type 1 diabetes, I claimed, is reversible. You heard me say that, right? There were no riots. You sat patiently. You didn't stone me. Thank you. But it is reversible. And let me give you the principle. So remember what I said about type 2 diabetes? Type 2 diabetes is when your cells do not respond to insulin. You make all the insulin, but your cells are no longer responding. It's been a life of Coca-Cola, McDonald's, all that. You're releasing lots of insulin, and so the cells stop responding. Let me just put it that way. Type 1 diabetes is not like that. Type 1 diabetes is you do not make enough insulin. And you do not make the insulin because the pancreas is being destroyed. They don't make insulin anymore. How on earth then can you reverse something like that if the pancreas is destroyed? So obviously most diagnoses happen in children, type 1 diabetes, and even your doctor, your pediatric endocrinologist will say, you know, there's a honeymoon period whereby your child might pull through, or he might just get the type 1 diabetes fully. Now, if you have a partially functioning pancreas, is it possible for that pancreas to, let's use the term, live again? Is it possible? What do you think? Yeah, because I've told you the answer anyway. Okay, now, almost every cells in the body regenerate. Almost every tissue regenerates, yes? So your liver regenerates, your lungs regenerate, your skin regenerates. You know that, you cut it, it heals. There's only a few cells that don't regenerate. Your nerve cells and your heart cells and some of your muscle cells, that's it. All the others regenerate. So if you take away the insult of the pancreas and you give the pancreas time to repair, it will regenerate. And that is how you reverse type 1 diabetes. But what does the doctor do? The doctor says to you, to your child, okay, he's been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, let's give him some insulin, right? Now your body gets the insulin, your brain detects it, and it says, oh, you got lots of insulin in the blood. Your pancreas doesn't need to function anymore. Then your pancreas dies and the child is type 1 diabetic for the rest of their life. So in that honeymoon period, if you take away the insult, that's the diet, and allow the pancreas to heal, I must say, I mean, I've had well over 50% success. Well over 50% success. So yes, it's possible. Thank you, that was a good one. I knew that would be challenging. Next. You're still shy of asking questions. Oh, not another one. Come on.
I guess to follow up on that question, so if a person is, a lifelong type 1 diabetic, I have heard some talk that through a fasting type diet, there is the possibility, at least in mice, to regenerate those stem cells in the pancreas. I don't know what your thoughts are on
yes,
that.
I've treated people in their adulthood who are type 1 diabetics and they've reversed. You never know, everybody's different, so you don't know what they've been through in their lives, but yes, if there is any semblance of a functioning pancreas, just even a little bit, it's possible. It's a bit like when people have thyroiditis or, their thyroid has been blown to bits. If there's a little bit remaining, that thyroid gland can be salvaged. So that's the skill and the patience of the practitioner. Not saying my skill, obviously, but you guys still awake? Okay, that's okay. Questions? Yes, put your hands up and then yes.
I have. I'm wondering about what you said about antioxidants.
Yeah.
Eating more berries. Can you explain the physiology of the oxidation? Does oxidation kill brain cells and antioxidant? What's happening there? How does that work?
You want me to explain biochemically what's going on up here? No, simply, what's happening is that your brain cells are becoming inflamed and they're becoming oxidized. That's it. In the early stages of dementia. And so everything you can do to reduce the inflammation and oxidation leads to the repair of function. Yeah. Now, in long-term dementia, when the nature of the cells start to actually change, there's not much you can do. That's too late. But in the early stage, when you have an early diagnosis, there's a lot you can do just to stem down the inflammation and the oxidation of the individual cells. And a lot of that, what I mean is, much of the symptoms come from the inflammation of the cells in the early stages. By the way, this is very similar to Parkinson's disease and multiple sclerosis. So we often think that because it's a nerve and the nerves don't regenerate, once the person's got the disease, there's not much you can do. No, but once you get rid of the inflammation, much of the symptoms go away. And I've had In fact, I was up in Lincoln in north of England the other day. 10 years ago, I helped a young man, well, I thought he was a young man, who had Parkinson's, early onset, and he's perfectly fine now. Perfectly fine, no medication. Yeah. If you don't believe me, I can give you his link. Yes, so there's a hand here, yeah.
For an adult that has had diabetes for a long time, in fact, the doctor told us today that you can't do anything to reverse or help diabetes with diet.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Are you going to believe him or me?
Well, I don't believe it, but...
Look, I'll tell you, it's an important question. Now, I trained as a doctor, just in case you think I'm a quack. I trained as a doctor. I trained at Cambridge University and University of London. And yeah, I know the training. I mean, that's fine. What we are trained to do is to discover the illness and treat the illness. That's what we're trained to do. That's the only knowledge we get in medical school. And treatment means I give you this medication to lower the symptoms. Not curing you, but at least your symptoms come down with this medication so that you can live with the disease and not die from the disease. That's fine. But all that means is that we extend your life with the disease. We've never been taught to cure. In order to find out how to cure, you have to leave the medical school and look into, well, what's the root cause of the problem? Type 2 diabetes, I must say, I'm not saying this flippantly, but in my experience, it is one of the more simpler diseases to reverse. Because once you have taken away all the stimulation for the insulin and the cells, every cell in the body wants to get well. Did you know that? Our bodies have this ability to heal themselves. That's what they want to do. All we need to then do is take away the insult, and they want to heal themselves. As I say, I've treated a gentleman who was 92 years old. He had diabetes for 40 years. He was cured within 2 months. You know, I've got all the testimonies. If you want the videos, I can show you the videos. So I know that doctors are not taught this. That's why they tell you this. I'm not saying doctors are being corrupt in any way. I don't believe that. But they're not taught it. That's all. All right? Wonderful. Next question. So if you, yeah.
I would just like to comment regarding your statement about nerve cells not regenerating. What can you tell us about neuroplasticity? Because there is a recent studies that brain cells do regenerate.
Okay, so you're talking about neuroplasticity. Now, I must say, thank you for this opportunity to let me boast. I spent quite a bit of time with Ben Carson when he was a neurosurgeon. Obviously, he knows a little bit about neuroplasticity. You know who Ben Carson is, right? Okay, fine. So neuroplasticity wasn't really about nerve regeneration. Neuroplasticity, in its name, it is that it's flexible. So the nerve, so if he did a hemispherectomy, taking half of the brain away, the other side, rather than just focusing on one side, it would start to do the job of the other side. That's not waking up cells and giving them life. That is changing the nature of a living cell. That's neuroplasticity. We do. I'm going to contradict myself in a minute, but stay with me. On the whole, when a nerve cell dies, it cannot live again. On the whole. There is now some small evidence that if a nerve cell is severely damaged, not fully dead, it can come back. But if a nerve cell is dead, it doesn't come back. Okay, but the plasticity is the change of function. Yeah, so it's almost like a nerve cell acts like a stem cell and can then start to do something different. That's what happens, yeah. Good.
I have a...
There's one at the front as well.
I have a one quick question here, and it's kind of a wild question. About the food, the plant-based food or diet, is there a general advice you can give us on how to prepare these foods in order to extract the maximum utilization of the nutrients they have?
The best way to prepare that sort of diet is a way that you find appealing. That sounds quite flippant, but I mean it. We're talking about lifestyle, so trying to struggle through life with unpalatable food is miserable, right? I'm never going to recommend that to anybody. If you like stews or salads or smoothies or soups or whatever, you go with that. Add as much spice as you want to, that's fine. Doesn't matter if it's hot or cold. Yeah, everybody will tell you the more raw food, the better, absolutely, but it doesn't all have to be raw. Eat food that you enjoy, okay? That's it, that's it. Yes?
You were talking a lot about inflammation. Cause of inflammation. Everybody seems to have certain components of inflammation. What is the remedy?
Yeah, okay. Well, one of the biggest causes of inflammation is the food that we eat. Sugar is a big inflammatory. And then the other toxins, caffeine, alcohol, tobacco, stress. All of those things cause inflammation. So everything that's insulting to the body causes it to inflame. And because inflammation is a natural response of the body to being attacked. A bit like being punched in the face, your face inflames because it wants to now start to heal. If you have any kind of inflammation, you must recognize that your body's under attack. Now, the second part of the question, what do you do about it? Okay, so these anti-inflammatories, we talked a bit about spices. You know, dealing with stress is an anti-inflammatory. Exercise is anti-inflammatory. Water is anti-inflammatory. Getting out in the sun is anti-inflammatory. All of those, the 8 laws of health that we know, all anti-inflammatory. So it's the basic things that we have in our arsenal that are so important to keep our cells under control and uninflamed. Very good. Who's next?
Doctor, have you had anything to do with diabetes insipidus?
Diabetes insipidus?
Yes.
I treat it in the same, almost exactly the same way as we treat diabetes mellitus, so type 2 diabetes. Almost exactly the same way.
I got it from the blow on the head.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that.
It's cutting out. I got a blow on the
A blow on the head?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, so there are many routes to diabetes, you know. There's the food route, there's sugar. Is that me now? Okay. All right, maybe they're telling us to leave, I don't know. There's sugar, there's fat, there's stress. Stress causes diabetes. Anybody who's been on steroids knows that you can get diabetes from steroids. And then there's meat. Some of the amino acids in meat make your cells become diabetic. But yes, it's the same process to reverse it.
This isn't working. Diabetes is to do with the...
Yeah, I know, but it's the same process. It's the same process. That's okay, we got it. Thank you. Yes.
I have a question. What else can be done if you're on a plant-based diet and your cholesterol levels are still high, LDL, you're exercising and all that stuff? What else can you do to avoid be put on a statin?
Okay. Wow. That's a big question.
And do genetics play a role?
That's a big question because No, you can't be recording me. Oh, well, this is on anyway. Okay, carry on. I'm going to get in trouble anyway. It doesn't matter. I don't live here. You know, that's fine. So I'll say this. Now, when a doctor stands up here and gives advice to an audience, the worst thing a doctor can do is to tell you to come off of your medication. We can't do that. I don't know what your situation is. I can't tell you to come off your medication. That would be unwise. Except for statins, except for statins. Those are useless drugs. Those are useless drugs. Let me just expand a bit more because I'm already causing a panic, I know. We have this idea that cholesterol is bad. Okay. All of our cells are made from cholesterol. You try to get rid of cholesterol, you will die. We now know that those people who have low cholesterol have high levels of dementia. Yeah? We know that as a side effect from the statins, by the way. But more importantly, what are statins supposed to do? Okay, so statins are supposed to lower your risk of heart disease. Now, I'd invite you to look at the studies for statins. The initial studies for statins showed that if you have 1,000 people who have heart disease, one group of 1,000 people you put on statins, the other group you don't put on statins. Out of the 1,000 who are on the statins, you may save 86 lives. Those who are on not the statins, possibly 85 out of the 1,000. Not much difference at all. And then there's the complications of the statins that come down. Statins are not a very good look for anybody. If you have high, I'm going to invite you to look at the research. There's a lot of research come out this year. Those people who have relatively raised cholesterol don't often have major problems with heart disease or whatever. It's a certain type of ratio that comes into play. So I wouldn't, unless it's sky-high cholesterol, I wouldn't worry about it. But you can be a 100% plant-based person and have too high cholesterol, because we make cholesterol ourselves and we make it from sugar. If you have lots of sugar in your diet, you will make lots of cholesterol. So reduce the amount of sugar, your cholesterol levels will come down to normal. There you go. Was that controversial enough for you? Okay, fair enough. As I say, I don't live here, so... Next question. Yes?
How do you know if you have leaky gut?
How do you know if you have leaky gut? You don't know when you have leaky gut. However, if I told you to come up here and finish off this talk, you would get butterflies in your stomach, right? That's the inflammation of your gut. Stress. Stress will cause it for you. Stress causes leaky gut. Certain drugs cause leaky gut, like ibuprofen, those sorts of drugs. Viruses can cause leaky gut as well. So anytime you have a virus, it's good to look after your gut as well as the rest of your health. But any of those insults will definitely cause a leaky gut.
I would like to ask you to tell me a little more about the unhealthy plant-based.
Unhealthy what?
Unhealthy plant-based diet.
An unhealthy plant-based?
For heart reverse.
No, hold on. You want me to tell you about an unhealthy plant-based diet for reversing heart disease?
In the beginning, you talked about reversing heart diseases, and then you talked about eating healthy plant-based.
Healthy.
Which ones are unhealthy then? That's what I want to know.
You want to know what's unhealthy?
Yes.
You don't want to know what's healthy? You want to know what's unhealthy?
They're unhealthy.
Right.
And both. It's okay.
Well, the list is long. Anything that's processed can still be plant-based. Donuts are plant-based. You can eat donuts all day and say, I've got a plant-based diet. Yeah? So there's lots of things anything that has lots of processed stuff in it, sugar, fat, salt, those combinations. In fact, they did some experiments with mice, and they gave the mice as much sugar as they wanted to eat. Do you know what happened to those mice? No, those mice ate as much sugar as they wanted, then they left it. They lived a normal life. They then gave a load of mice fat, as much fat as they wanted. Same thing happened. They ate as much fat as they wanted, they left the rest. Then they combined the sugar and the fat together and did the same experiment. All of the rats died from obesity and heart disease because they couldn't control themselves. There's a combination of sugar and fat together that makes food very difficult for us to put down. Yeah? So chocolates, biscuits, ice cream, all of those things become addictive. You've never heard somebody say, oh, if I have one celery leaf, I have to eat all of them. Doesn't happen. But biscuits, chocolate, you don't say biscuits, you say cookies here, don't you? So all of those things, oh yes, I have one, I have to finish the lot because they're addictive. There you go, there's a good list. Cakes, that's right, that's a good list for you. Next question, yes.
Thank you, doctor. A close friend of mine
Yes.
had his doctor prescribe the inclusion of eggs in his diet to counter early dementia. I was wondering if there was a plant-based alternative that would do the same thing.
Yeah, and I don't know why the doctor chose eggs. I don't understand that. But everything that we've been talking about, everything that is plant-based, which has high antioxidants, beans, greens, vegetables, fruits, and all of that, that is what will reduce your risk of having any kind of dementia. But then you have to look at your mind and deal with the stress and how to deal with stress. We'll be talking about that tomorrow. But it's a combination of all different things for dementia. I don't know how much time we have left. What? Okay, all right. Next question. Yes, you're at the back.
Thank you. We said that dementia can also be reversed with using berries. So I have a question that if berries irritate someone's stomach lining and also worsens acid reflux, what can be done for that person, please?
Well, then so if berries are causing gut inflammation, it's not actually the berries, it's the sensitivity of the body, and the sensitivity of the body would be for a reason. And one of the biggest reasons is that maybe you're on some kind of medication, or you've been exposed to lots of dairy products, or a different type of protein. So the thing is to realize what is causing this trigger, get rid of that, then you'll be able to take the berries. And if you're not able to take the berries, then there are lots of concentrated supplements that have a lot of the berries' nutrients in them. But I would try to go for get rid of the inflammation first, and then be free to take the berries. Yes. Who's got the microphone? Yes, okay. 5 minutes, okay, thank you.
What are your thoughts on the whole protein craze that's kind of happening right now? Because I think even in like the plant-based world, everybody is talking about eating as much protein as possible, especially if you're into exercise, and as a young female, you should be eating like 150 grams a day, like all these crazy numbers. So I just want to know your thoughts on realistic amounts, and if you're like trying to gain muscle or just be active, maintain muscle, how much would you realistically need to have in a plant-based diet?
Okay, that's a good one. There is this craze of protein. You go to the gym, everybody's drinking these purple, green, blue drinks full of whey protein, right? Whey protein. Where does whey come from? Cow's milk, right? So, I mean, this is disaster made in our making. Let me say this. I don't know if you ever know anybody with kidney problems. There are 3 ways to kill your kidneys: high blood sugar, high blood pressure, loads of protein, right? And the doctors won't tell you when you have kidney failure, it's not a death sentence, it's actually reversible. And how you do that is lower the amount of protein in your diet. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen a gorilla in your life. Most of it, their DNA is pretty much similar to ours, 98.7%. They don't drink protein shakes. Their guts are pretty much like ours. If a fully grown gorilla was let wild in this room, all of us couldn't restrain it. Yeah? We talk about protein. It is, you say it's crazy. Well, it is a craze, right? It's a craze. There's no real fact in it. I don't know if you realize where we got the figures from for the amount of protein that should be in our diet. Do you know where we got that from? Well, there was a gentleman during the Second World War in the Office of Health in Great Britain. He wanted to figure out, well, how are we going to find out how much protein people need for rationing? He walked down the street, he saw these builders, they were digging in the road, and he said, hey, what is it you're eating? And they showed him what they were eating. He replicated it, took it back to the lab and said, well, that would probably work for everybody. That was how it was formed. It's arbitrary, arbitrary. Animals in the wild are not eating lots of protein shakes. It doesn't happen that way. They're doing perfectly fine. People don't realize how much protein there is in vegetables and fruits and beans. Beans have more protein per calories than anything. No meat has as much protein per calories as beans. So just stick to the normal, natural stuff. I would never go anywhere near a protein shake because they cause all sorts of problems in the long run. Right? Okay, I think we've probably got time for one more question. Who's going to have the last one of the day?
I was wondering if you could talk about recovering from lung disease.
Okay, that's a big one. And what we need to know is the type of disease and how the person acquired the disease. But the good news is, as I've said, if all tissue, lung tissue is certainly regenerated, so long as it's not completely fibrosed, there is an opportunity for that lung tissue to regenerate. And it will be a lot of the basic principles. So I would say things like lots of turmeric, okay? Lots of spices, lots of vegetables, lots of getting outside, lots of sunshine, all of those things certainly will help. Okay, thank you so much. It's been wonderful. I will see you, God willing, tomorrow evening.